Most of the cities in Britain cater for the tourist industry in the form of open-top city tour buses that take you around their famous landmarks. This is an ideal way of learning the history of these locations. In Glasgow, for instance, you'd be shown the Cathedral, the Kelvin Grove Art Gallery and Museum, the Science Centre on the Clyde, and the Glasgow University. In London it would be the Controversial Dome and the most photographed person in London, who is a member of the Household Cavalry at Horse Guard Yard in Whitehall, where the cenotaph is situated. It would be Covent Garden just off the Strand with its famous red buses. Royal Observatory at Greenwich with its well-trodden Meridian line. But quite frequently, these tour buses get caught up in the inevitable traffic jams, which can be rather frustrating. So we've chosen a more serene mode of transport. It's a cruise along London's great river in one of the numerous pleasure crafts. Here at Greenwich on display is the famous tea clipper, the Cutty Sark. Oh, and for the edification of our English cousins, Cutty Sark is Scottish for short shirt and is mentioned in Rabbie Burns' famous epic poem, Tam O'Shanter. We would be travelling from Greenwich Pier on the right of the map to Westminster Pier on the left. We chose this short cruise assured that there would be a running commentary. This was a complete lie, and we protested to no avail. The only information he gave out was the emergency procedures and the locations of the life belts. So I will do my very best to describe the various landmarks on information that our daughter Evelyn gave, and any data that I gleaned from elsewhere, and I apologise in advance if there are some errors. And as the boat is only going one way, I make no apologies to those film purists who will throw their hands up in horror because in some sequences I have crossed the line. Now these derelict wharves, they are being converted into extremely expensive and desirable apartments. Ah, whether you're rich or whether you're poor, it's nice to have money. This tall-pointed office block is called Canary Wharf because it's built on the site of the West India Docks on the Isle of Dogs, and it takes its name from the sea trade with the Canary Islands. To me, this looks as if giant Lego bricks have been thrown down at random. The ever-vigilant Thames River Police was formed in 1798 to prevent the thefts from merchant ships anchored in the Pool of London. Tower Bridge was constructed in 1894, and it used to be raised about 50 times a week, but nowadays it's only raised about 4 or 5 times a week. Nearby is the Tower of London, which has been a palace, a fortress, and a prison in its turbulent history dating from 1078. The City Hall was designed by Norman Foster and is the residence of the Lord Mayor. It was opened in 2002. HMS Belfast is the largest surviving warship in Europe. It was launched on St. Patrick's Day in 1938 at Harland and Wolff by Anne Chamberlain, the wife of Neville Chamberlain. The ship saw service in World War II and in the Korean War, and it's now a museum to the bravery of sailors in war. Passing under the Millennium Bridge, which was nicknamed Wobbly at one time, although the Scots people would say Shugly, St Paul's Cathedral comes into view, its dome dominating the skyline despite the surrounding office blocks. Oh, this is interesting. When the Oxford building was being built, the owner wanted to include a tower featuring an illuminated sign advertising their product. When permission was refused, the tower was built with 4 sets of 3 vertically aligned windows, each of which coincidentally happened to be in the shape of a circle, a cross, and a circle. Rather cunning, don't you think? Some of these ships have seen better days, but they could be collector's items. And one gets the impression that they were the type of ships that Agatha Christie travelled on, getting ideas for her whodunits. And there on the south bank is the Royal Festival Hall, built in 1951 for the Festival of Britain. Cleopatra's Needle dates from 1450 BC and is London's oldest monument. We were coming to the end of the cruise, but we had to wait a while in the middle of the river until another craft vacated our berth. And to pass the time, I filmed some of the other boats of different shapes and sizes. Oh, there's our berth being vacated. And I wondered what those 2 policemen were watching on the river bank. Now it was time to disembark, and half the passengers had got ashore, when all of a sudden the barrier was dropped in place, preventing the rest of us to get off. There was confusion. I asked the crewman what was the matter. He said that they'd been ordered by the police to move away from the berth to get into the middle of the river because a body had been seen floating in the vicinity. Passengers were scanning the river to see if they could see anything. The rescue services were quickly on the scene. It was then that Evelyn saw a lady's shoe floating nearby. I found it difficult to focus on the shoe because I was being jostled from behind by the other passengers trying to get a glimpse of it.
Shoe. Where's it going? You tell them there's a shoe there.
The rescue services were directed to a cabin cruiser nearby, and we wondered why. And we made our way back to Westminster Pier. We learnt later that the body of a young girl had been picked up. Accident, foul play or suicide, who can say? The trip was an enjoyable experience, but was marred at the end by this appalling tragedy. If London's great river could only speak, it would have a lot of fascinating tales to tell. But like the words in the song, old Father Thames goes drifting along, down to the mighty sea.